And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 291. I have a funny feeling the last one I said was 291, but that was 290. There you go. Today is the Pareidolia Challenge. So, Pareidolia, that notion where you see faces or animals or people in random patterns. So, yeah, much to talk about. There's a little bit of fun and a Lamborghini just driving past the window, and followed by a Porsche and a Ferrari. There's obviously some kind of car show going on at the moment. Another Porsche. I should really be just turning this camera to the window there. Lots of interesting cars. It's not a car competition. Right, let's get started. So, welcome to a very distracted episode 291. Today it is the Pareidolia Challenge. Yes, so if you happen to be watching live here on YouTube, then leave me a message. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what the weather's doing. We can get the chat started. Yes, my head, I have to say, is completely elsewhere. It's been something of a rather intense few weeks. So, please bear with me while I probably completely forget what I'm supposed to be doing next. If you happen to be watching live, leave a comment. Also, leave a like if I've not put you off and you've not run away already. Likes always help the algorithms. Occasionally we get new people turning up. In fact, interestingly, with this Pareidolia Challenge, we have entries from at least two people who've never put anything in before, possibly three. So that's quite fun too. Yes, well, I'm just going to ground myself a little bit. I can see we have comments, so let's make a start already. Gunilla says, hi from Ireland. It's a lovely summer here today, and I've been out for a picnic by the sea. Sounds rather lovely. We've had quite a lovely kind of summery weather the last couple of weeks, but now it's become a bit overcast and we've lost the sunshine. Well, little patches of it, but the heat has gone. April says, greetings from a sunny Long Island, New York. Viji says, good evening from a humid, sultry Chennai in India. Janet says, hi from a warm Mississauga in Canada. Lisa says, good morning all from a sunny and cool Maryland. Roland joins us from a slightly fresher than yesterday London. Susan says, hi from a lovely day in Kakubri. Sunshine, bit of a breeze and pleasantly warm, just my kind of day. Well, obviously, Susan, you've got an entirely different weather here than we are in Castle Douglas. Now, considering Castle Douglas is just 9 miles up the road, but slightly into the hills, whereas Kakubri is down on the coast. So it's quite often get completely different weather. John says, good morning all from a beautiful day here in Ohio. And Marci joins us, says, good morning, Kim and everyone. And Sandra Bliss says, good morning from a very rainy Alberta. Now, Sandra Bliss actually is down, prefers to be called Sandy. And I know this because Sandy's put in an image for the Pareidolia Challenge. Says she's been watching for a wee while and decided to join in. So welcome, Sandy. Susan says, yeah, sun's still shining. No, yep. Definitely still cloudy and grey out the window here. Yes, all the funness of a live podcast. Yeah, well, unless you're watching the recording. If you're watching the recording, you'd also hit the like button as well, because that kind of helps the algorithms maybe show it to future people. Right, okay, what are we going to do? So this week, then, is the Pareidolia Challenge. Now, what is Pareidolia? So, the Pareidolia is where you have random shapes. Could be wood chip wallpaper, could be the front of a car, could be peeling paintwork, could be clouds are a very popular one as well, where you see a face, or you see an animal, or you see people. And it's one of those kind of things where it is your own brain making an interpretation. Now, if you think about, at a very basic level, something like a smiley, two dots and a line, and you've got, the whole emoji system of the internet is built upon a couple of dots and a line. A circle, a figure of 8 turned on its side, and you've got a pair of glasses. You curve one way, it's a frown curve, another way it's a smile. At an angle, it's kind of not sure what's going on. All these different expressions. Are these literal faces? No, they are the brain interpreting. And what happens is we have evolved to be able to recognize shapes out of partial clues. We don't have to see the whole thing to be able to work out what it is. And that's an evolutionary advantage. So if you see a bit of a saber-toothed tiger, your brain fills in the fact that there's the rest of the saber-toothed tiger. Now, if it turns out to be a false alarm and actually what you're seeing is just the outline of a couple of fallen logs and you go, oh my God, saber-toothed tiger, and you run away, well, a false alarm, you're likely to survive. But if you didn't recognise what was actually there, then you will have got eaten, not passed on your genes. And so therefore we are evolved from the paranoid, the obsessive compulsive, the ones who kind of tend to be slightly anxious. These are traits that allow you to survive for longer. Might not be the most pleasant, as I've heard many times before. The brain didn't evolve to make us happy. The brain evolved to help us to survive. So understand that when you're going off to see your therapist. Now, what else have we got? Marci says, how many Klingons does it take to change a light bulb? 10. 1 to change the bulb, and 9 to berate him for performing such a menial task while being a member of a proud warrior race. Okay, it's a joke for Star Trek fans. Gord joins us. It says, hello, everyone. So welcome back, Gord. Okay, well, thanks for the joke, Marci, but it's totally thrown me off. Try and find the photography jokes for this one. Where are we? No, I'm completely losing it. Okay, I think what we should do is we should make a start. And that's what I was talking about, Pareidolia. So what we did was Viji won the Smug Point challenge for April. And whoever accumulates the most Smug Points across the course of the month gets to choose the topic and challenge for the following month. So she chose the topic of Pareidolia. So 2 weeks ago, in episode 290, I talked in depth about that. So if you'd like to know more about the topic, or you want to remind yourself, or gen up a bit on the topic, then go check out episode 290, where talk, give examples, all the usual stuff. And then I set the Pareidolia challenge. So like I said, we've actually had 11 people send in images. So what we're going to do for this podcast is we're going to go through the images and kind of see how other people have interpreted them. And it kind of gives us a sense of maybe how we might go around taking this idea into the future. Where are we? Okay, right. So what I will do then is I will do a little bit of a desktop tidy up as such so that I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, Marci says sorry. That's okay. Right, and I'm going to start with, if I do that, do that, and we're going to start with Susan, I think. So, well, actually, before we get, Susan says, firstly, can I congratulate you on your crowd event? So, yes, the reason why it's 2 weeks since I was last here, well, last I had the podcast, is because last week was Spring Fling, which is this open studio event that happens right across southwest Scotland. Whereas this year there was 111 different studios opened their door to the public, and there were potters and weavers and painters and jewellers and all makers of and artists of all kinds. And there were a few photographers as well, and I was putting on a photographic event called Crowd. Now, I talked about that, I think, possibly episode 289, but in essence, the idea was that I was to photograph people in a space, and I was photographing them standing in different places individually as they came in. And then at some point across this summer, I'm going to be editing all these photos together to create it, look as though there's one big scene which had lots of people in. Now, in the event, I had space for I'd laid out spaces for about 45 people or so, and I think I can possibly get about 3 photos worth, maybe even 4, out of all the people who turned up. When I do that, I'll probably take up a little bit of one of the podcast episodes to show you, talk you through it, all that kind of thing. Anyway, rather wonderfully, Susan came along and she took part in it. So, Susan says, you successfully talked me into doing something I usually hate and even made me feel comfortable doing it. Your people skills are amazing. Oh, I think it helps that we know each other, Susan. I do hope you don't get too bogged down in the editing now that Spring Fling is over. I must admit there's so much editing to do for that. Part of me fears I might still be editing it by Spring Fling next year. Anyway, she goes on to say, I attach my submission for Pareidolia challenge. This image was taken only a few feet from my favourite chair. the one I sit in most evenings. And what we're talking about is the view into her fireplace. So, anybody want to take a quick guess before I tell you what we're looking at here? She says, my daughter-in-law first spotted and pointed it out. And although I must have seen it hundreds of times, now it's been pointed out, I can't unsee it. The evening sunshine has made it stand out even more. And I think this is kind of a very common thing that there's so often when we're interpreting shapes, we will often interpret the same shape in slightly different ways, or sometimes we don't even see a shape, and then somebody points it out, and that from then on, we can't unsee it. So what have we got? Oh, well, Gunilla said a dog, and April said a bunny. Lisa's going for a dinosaur. Well, there you go. You thought it was really obvious, Susan. Whereas, in fact, what Susan says, it's a donkey. Viji says it looks to me like a hand gesture. Shadow puppet, perhaps. No, actually, it's a donkey formed in the soot on the rear of the chair. So what she's talking about here is the donkey is facing left. So what we've got is we've got the snout coming here. We've got the eye. We've got the donkey ears coming up here. A bright eye, and even has legs. So we kind of got the legs coming out here. So if you think of this as the body, this as the mouth coming down. So a little bit like Eeyore from the Winnie the Pooh, head kind of sunk forward, and the ears coming up here. So this then is what Susan, so she, daughter-in-law pointed out that, oh look, there's a donkey shape in there, and Susan's been sitting there for months on end not noticing this particular shape. Okay, so what else have we got? Viji said hand gesture. Gord says it looks like a dog. And Marci says, I see the donkey. And April says, now I see it. And that's it. Sometimes it takes a, now I see it. Now you've laid it out. Sometimes you may even need to sort of draw around the edge of it to be able to see it. And so it's taken with her phone. So, I mean, as as photos go, it can't get much easier than sitting in your favourite chair where you sit all the time and you just pull out your phone and go click. So you've not had to climb to the top of a mountain or trek across the Amazon to get the shot. Sometimes the universe works in your favour. Oh, Meg's joined us and says hi, everyone. So there we go. So that's the first one. So that starts to give you an idea of what pareidolia is. So generally speaking, it's a face, or it's an animal, or it's a person. Is the way pareidolia tends to work. So thank you, Susan, for sending that one in. Now, just to keep a mental note, so you don't have to sort of say anything straight away, at the end of the podcast, we will have a viewer's choice. So I'm going to go through all 11 photos, and then I will ask you what your favourite one was, and bonus smug points to be won. Now, interestingly, with the smug points, it's going to kind of, who wins this it's all going to be riding on who wins this month, this challenge, as for who gets to choose the topic for next month. So all to play for. So next then we're going to move on to Nadia. Now Nadia says, this is my entry to the challenge. I feel like the foam looks a little like a skull. So if we look here in the foam of the water, just as it's kind of whooshing around on the inside, Nadia is seeing a skull, and yeah, sure enough, I think we can see the hollows of the eyes and the nose, and possibly even a kind of a mouth here with teeth starting to come down, or maybe a beard. So that's right. Oh, April says, yes, I see it right. I saw it right away. Lisa says, I do see a face of some sort. Marci says, saw it right away as well. So, and this is an interesting one. Well, okay, so in this case, when you think of Susan's one, a few people thought, well, is it a dog? Is it a dinosaur? There's other ways. And then once you say donkey, you go, oh, okay, now I see the donkey. For some people, with this, the skull, they saw it straight away. Other people don't. And I think this is part of the interesting bit about pareidolia, because it's not that there is actually something there. There isn't actually a skull there. We are seeing it and we are interpreting it. So how we interpret it is based on a whole number of things. Partly it's to do with the way our brain is wired, and and there's sort of genetic bits in there, but there's also cultural, there's environmental influences, our whole life experiences all kind of come to this point of what we see in a particular shape, whether we see anything at all. Interestingly, at Crowd helping me over over the Spring Fling weekend, I had a friend who has aphantasia, and that means she has no kind of internal visualization. So words, sounds, music, smells, textures, taste, all this kind of stuff is there, but not visualization. And that means she doesn't really see faces. So she'll know me by my voice, by the fact she was expecting to see me, by the fact that she can sort of piece together various clues, but she doesn't necessarily recognise me by my face. If you placed a photo of me in front of her where she didn't hear my voice or see any of the other things, she wouldn't necessarily be able to pick me out in a bunch of photos, even though we've known each other for nearly 20 years. Now, in that case, she wouldn't be able to see or would have a completely different sense of trying to find shapes. So that notion that we've all got this different range from aphantasia, where you have no visual idea, right through to somebody else who's hyperphantasia, I know, who doesn't think in words at all. She only thinks in pictures. Pictures are just and she says that when she's talking, she's essentially having to constantly translate the pictures into words. So with her, she is very highly likely to see all sorts of things that the rest of us wouldn't even notice. So I love the idea that we've got the range of human experience and visualization and the way we perceive the world is vastly different. We assume everybody is seeing the world in the way that we do, but we don't. We all see it slightly differently. What have we got? Marci says, I like it a lot. It's the skull in the moment. 2 seconds later and it would be gone. Absolutely, as things move. Sandy says, looks like the guy from Scream. Yeah. April says, I have a friend who has the same problem. Gord says, kind of how I see things. And Viji says, able to see the skull. Lisa says, we also see colours differently. We can do. Yeah, I don't think it's like we see, it's not like, you see red, I see green kind of differences, but there are definite sort of shifts. And if of course you're colourblind, then that makes a difference as well. We've all got the rods and cones in our eyes. The cones have, influence our, red, yellow, blue, or red, green, blue perceptions. And if one of those isn't working, that can lead to a kind of colour blindness. So some people have like a red-green colour blind, and a few people have complete colour blindness, so that they essentially only see the world in the equivalent of black and white. Gord says, like in the scene in the Queen's Gambit. Don't remember. I have seen the Queen's Gambit, but I'm not necessarily sure which scene you mean with that one, Gord. Okay, so next up then, what we will do is, we're going to go to Gunilla. Now, this is really going to, I think, test your ability to see for everything that we've talked about. So, Gunilla sent in this, and I think for a moment, what's going to happen is, if you see anything at all, you're probably going to see something slightly different to what Gunilla saw. But I found this fascinating, because what Gunilla did, she said, this Pareidolia challenge was tough. I used to see figures everywhere, but not now when I need to. But I found a face and a dog on a tree trunk. Right, so can you see the face and can you see the dog? Okay, and now Marci says, I see it. Is she seeing the same thing? She says, but I've included drawings so you can see what I saw. So she's like that bit, she's darkened that bit. And in fact, actually, here we go. She's included a drawing here. So she's got a dog here on the left, and she's got the face and a little body here with the arms coming down. Now, so if we go from that to that, so, I mean, it's like this little face of the dog here. I didn't see it at all. But when you remove the red line, it kind of still hovers there. Okay, now I can see it. But to be honest, I would not have seen it at all without the guidelines. Likewise, the person on the right with the eyes and the head and the arms coming down. When I remove the line, I can see it. Marci says she didn't see the dog. Now goes, April says looks more like a pig to me. I thought pig first of all too, but obviously you don't get it. You get a curly tail with a pig. So yeah, a particular kind of dog, I think. So yeah, lots of different ways you can kind of interpret John says, I see it after the red line. Marci says, I was going to say more of a piglet. So there, I think this is kind of fun, and it sort of starts to emphasize this idea of that there are some pictures which some people are going to see and other people are not. And this becomes quite important, I think, if you are going to be going for one of these Pareidolia challenges. So yeah, thank you for sending that one in, Gunilla. Next up then, we're going to go for Viji. Now, here we go. We can have fun with this one with Viji as well. So, beautiful sunset, and we've got these clouds running right across the sun and everything else. Now, here we go. I'll pause just for a moment. What do you think? What Viji says, here's my photo submission for this month's Pareidolia challenge. India is a peninsula, and the southern part of India is surrounded by glorious beaches. In Chennai, so if you're looking at India as it kind of comes down near the bottom, as it kind of comes down to the point, that's Chennai. That's where the part of the world that Viji is in. So in Chennai, we are used to sunrises where the sky is serene and a soft palette. So I was surprised when I witnessed a sunset where the sky was gold and the clouds were dark and vibrant. This photo was taken at Gokarna Beach near Goa, and Goa is familiar to many, as it is seen as probably one of the most famous beach cities in India. Personally, I prefer Chennai beaches as they are less crowded. Gokarna Beach was deserted as well, which I know that's pretty rare as well. Viji's talked before about one of the big problems with India is you go to the beach and it's just packed all the time. And she says, now, coming to the topic, if you like watching cartoons when you were young, in my case, I watched them more with my son. Roadrunner used to be one of our favourites, and the cloud resembled Roadrunner, the Looney Tunes show, complete with its long hazy dust trail. Not sure if you see what I see. Meep meep. So what Viji is seeing here is that what we've got here is Roadrunner here shooting along, and then the great big dust trail flying out behind her. But she goes on to admit, my son thought it looked more like an elephant pointing out, and my husband said it looked like a teddy bear skiing. Whatever, as long as it's some kind of shape of an animal, I'm happy. So we're coming up here. So Lisa says yes on the clouds. Gunilla says an elephant. Marci says an elephant. Lisa says, I see a bear standing on the cloud. So there we go. Elephants and bears, Viji. Other people are getting elephants and bears as well. Susan says a waving teddy bear. April says a rooster's head on that cloud on the left. And Roland goes, meep, meep. So yes, I think it did make me laugh. That I wasn't totally sure. I had to read the bit, and then when you see it, I think for me it's a notion of like the dust cloud coming out the back really is what makes it. But then yes, there are these other interpretations. I'm struggling to see the elephant, but you say your husband saw the elephant. Other people have seen the elephant here. Gord says the rooster. I can kind of see a rooster, I think. So yes, lots of. But whatever, I do have to say it's a gorgeous sunset photo. I mean, goodness me, look at that sea, look at that light, look at that reflection and the little bit on the sand. That's beautiful, as sunset photos go. And that lovely textures in the sky, superb. So that's a lovely one. So yes, thank you for sending that one in, Viji. That did put a smile on my face. Right, okay. Next up, we're going to go to Brian. Now, interestingly, Brian is a newbie. So I suddenly got this picture come in, and I thought, well, okay, from Brian, and I thought, I don't know who Brian is, but so I sent back and said, oh, right, okay, tell me a bit about yourself. So Brian says, this is my entry. Right, so Brian's been watching this for a couple of months. He found it, cropped up in his YouTube feed. I don't know that he always gets the chance to actually watch live, but does kind of watch the recordings. He's been following us for a little while. So this was his first entry into it, and he sent in this one. And Brian says, this is my entry for the contest this month. I liked how the reflection of the building bent to look like a mask or face. I like taking pictures, but I'm thinking it's good for, I like taking landscape pictures, but I'm thinking it's good for me to work at taking other kinds of photos to get better photos all round. And I think you're absolutely right there, Brian, that, whatever topic we've got a particular feeling for, we may love landscapes, or we may love doing street photography, or we might like even doing street life, still life or something. But whatever our favourite kind of photography is, it's always worth going out and trying the others. You don't have to display the others, you don't have to show off the other ones, but all the other kinds of photography we do then can feed back into the bit that we're happiest with. Me, I'm a portrait photographer, that's what I specialise in, and most of the photos that certainly I put out there under my Kim Ayres photography banner will involve people. But that doesn't stop me going out and doing all the other kinds of photography, because then all these things feed into my portraiture. And of course, the ones that aren't portraits also I can then put into online competitions like Photo Crowd and Guru Shots and things like that. So what have we got? Oh, Gord says, comment there about the rooster on Viji's. Marci says, elephant rearing up on hind legs, trunk being on the left-hand most cloud. Oh, okay, right. Marci says, actually, with this one, I do see a masked man. So I think when we look at this one, now there's a couple of different ways you could maybe be looking at this one. So you could, I think there's potentially, what I see here is 3 potential faces, and I'm not completely sure which one you were referring to, Brian. Now, the one that stands out strongest to me is, in fact, this part here, I would say, looks like a helmet, almost like a diver's helmet, where you've got the kind of glass mask front here, the top of this kind of metallic helmet up here, and then like a neck thing here, and then the body would be coming down. So almost like a kind of diver's suit in some sense. That's the first thing that I saw. However, I then realised that there's another one here which looks kind of almost like a happy frog. So we've got an eye here, and a big mouth here with a kind of body and little. So that's another possibility of face. But then there's another face down here as well, where we've got, this one's now got much more of a kind of furrowed brow and an eye, square eye here, square eye here, a kind of frowny mouth, maybe a little bit of lips or something like that. So you didn't actually specify which of these you think is the one that's kind of coming to you. Maybe there's another one in there that I've missed altogether. April says, I agree, Kim. I think she put that in when I was talking about the idea of the helmet over on the right here. And I think that what's Viji says, it looks like a robo face wearing headphones. And I think this is where it comes down to, again, we're getting the idea of different things going on. But I think the key thing that I want to kind of point out here, though, at this point, is if you were to stick this in for a Pareidolia challenge. So, I think there's one later on where Sandra talks about photo that she never normally puts in. Photo Crowd, online photo competition site, periodically has Pareidolia challenges. And Sandra says she's never done it before because it's not something she's ever really been able to relate to. Although now we've talked about it, she sent in an image for this. But it is one of those things that if you are putting in for a challenge where there is going to be a crowd vote, or anybody voting and judging it, you have to be sure that they can see what you can see. And this is kind of a point that comes around. So when we look at the likes of Gunilla's one, once it's outlined, and then you remove the outline, you go, yes, I can see it. But when we looked at, like Brian's one, some of us may lock onto other things. Or when we look at Viji's, it might be a rooster, it might be a Roadrunner, it might be an elephant, might be a teddy bear. You might see something, or you might see nothing. But you're not necessarily going to get a universal agreement on it. And so that becomes really quite important, I think, if you're thinking about the notion of putting in for a challenge. Sometimes if you're going for something like this, you really have to try and make it maybe a little bit more obvious. You have to be kind of really quite clear about what it is you're trying to do. So what have we got here? Marci says, very good photo. Viji says, Carl Brashear from 12 Steps. Not getting the reference, but maybe somebody else's, that's okay. And Sandy says, such fun in this image. Excellent. Right, okay. So what we will do now then is we will move on to April. And April says, I finally got a decent Pareidolia shot. I call it Shocked Blue Alien. I found this on a wall in the gym at my job. There were about 3 of them. I never noticed it before, but I was on a hunt to find a face for this contest and must have been have been scanning everywhere. So yes, and it's one of those things that sometimes when you've got the pareidolia, it's like you're looking and you can't see anything. And then other times it's like your brain just goes click and you see everywhere you look, you can see something. Viji saying 12 steps is from the movie Men of Honor about a US diver. Oh, right. Okay, that would make sense then. Lisa says, I see it, lol, cute. Marci says, nice. Viji says, looks like Christ on the cross. That's another interpretation of it. Marci says, nice. Oh, yeah, it's just correcting a spelling mistake earlier. Susan says, now you'll see them everywhere, every day, April. Yes. I think it's a little bit like the drunk octopus looking for a fight, one that I showed a couple of weeks ago. Gord says, hinged. Right, so... Okay, so that kind of takes us, we're roughly about halfway through now. So quick little reminder then that if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining even, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can support it. Now, another thing I'm going to keep hammering on probably forever about, or at least until I stop doing them, is I now have a newsletter, Substack newsletter. So Kim Ayres Photography.substack.com. So, within that, on average, it's going to probably be one a month. Sometimes I might throw in an extra one. Very occasionally, if there's a lot happening, there might be, another 1 or 2, but you'll never get more than 2 a month, or 2 a week, or 2 in 1 week, I would say. Probably unlikely to get more than about 2 a month. So it's not like this is going to be a deluge in your inbox every day. But I have set up the newsletter, and one of the parts of the monthly newsletter will be a little bit about the podcast. So there'll be a kind of if you missed it, what you can catch up on, and what the plan is for the coming month. So I'll probably usually put it out in the first or second week. Once we've got the topic of the month, I'll send it out. So if you're not always about, if you just want a kind of reminders, if you've missed some, then do sign up to the newsletter, because that will kind of, land in your inbox. The simple fact is, I just don't trust social media to show my stuff to anybody. It doesn't matter. I can have 3,000 followers on Facebook and I put up a post and it says 6 people it's shown it to. Or maybe if I'm really, really lucky, it's made it up to 50 or 60. Or maybe if I've gone practically viral, I've got it to 70 people, right? Out of the 3,000 following. So, but if I want to get it to a few hundred of my thousands of followers, I have to pay them vast amounts of money all the time. So I just don't trust social media as a way of getting my stuff out anymore. Obviously, I still have to do it a bit, but I'm really looking to the idea of building the relationship with people who are interested in photography and the way that I teach it, present it, have insights to it, produce it. And I want to go back to that more kind of personal relationship. And so therefore I'm doing the newsletter. Likewise, you can also email me if you have any interesting ideas that you'd like me to put in it. Other things though, if you're wanting to take part in any of the challenges and future challenges, or you want to send me images for the feedback session, next week's a feedback session, by the way, then kimayrespodcast@gmail.com is the place to send it for that. You can always put things in the Facebook group as well, if you're on Facebook. But whether it's in the Facebook group or it's in the email, always tell me, if you're sending something into the challenge, tell me a bit about the photo. And also, if you're putting something in for feedback, make sure you tell me what kind of feedback you're looking for as well. What is it? So, Marci says, I think we're all slowly moving away from Facebook. I rarely go there. With Facebook, I kind of only go there for a few minutes at a time. I go there because there are people I want to keep in contact with, the people I want to know about. I've got friends going back from school. I've got family on different parts of the world. But within minutes of scrolling, I'm bombarded with stuff that I don't like, whether that's particular forms of politics or particular forms of what's going on in the world, or it's particular kinds of advertising and stuff that I really don't want to look at, and stuff that just makes me feel worse about being a human being. It's not good for my mental health. And unfortunately, it's like I'm being told, in order to get the bits you want, you have to put up with all this nasty stuff. I'm getting fed up with it. I think an awful lot of people are. Anyway, sorry. This is me going off on a side rant. I don't want to do that. This is supposed to be a place, an oasis away from that. Okay. We never discuss politics. We don't discuss any of these kind of, this is a place for photography. Okay. So my apologies. Okay. So let's move on. And, right. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go on to Janet. Oh yeah, this one made me smile. And for me, this is really classic Pareidolia. She says, this was some peeling paint on a Toronto Islands in early 2025. It was near the pier. And going from memory, it was on the side of a building with bicycle rentals and a couple of restaurants. So you would never know. I mean, at first glance, I thought it was almost like green algae on a pond with a couple of little spaces in it. But here we have the eyes and the smiley mouth. And then you see your typical kind of smiley boy, you know, two eyes make, you know, and two circles and a smiley mouth. April says cute face. Marci says very nice. Roland says looks comical. And it does. I think it's fun. It puts the smile on the face. And it's that bit whereby this is that notion. Again, the interesting part of photography is the isolation. That if you stood back and you saw the whole of the wall and you saw the whole of the scene and you could see people on bicycles and everything else, you might not notice it. The camera doesn't necessarily show us what's, you know, it's that quote again. I can't remember the exact quote, but we don't take photos to see what's there. We take photos to see what it looks like through the camera, or to what it looks like as a photo. And when you narrow in and you block off what is fill the frame idea, then, you know, you get new ideas of what it is we see. And that's part of the fun of what photography is, I think. Lisa says, oh, green creature. Susan says, love it, well spotted. Gunilla, so funny. Viji said, this is one a beautiful pic. Crocodile wearing spectacles. See, Viji, I think from a lot of the way you talk, I think you really have a powerfully strong visual imagination. And that is meant as a compliment. Gord says, Ghostbusters. I see what you mean there, actually. John says, smiley. Sandy says, awesome, Janet, love it. Roland says, great framing. And Janet says, there were no people on bicycles in January. All right, okay, everything was closed. I went back the following summer and couldn't find it again. Well, the problem with peeling paint is it's going to peel a bit more, I guess. Gunilla reckons it looks like a frog. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's just swap that one out. So, yes, thank you for sending that one in, Janet. All right, next up we have Gord. Now I think Gord, this is actually Gord's first submission, I think. Okay, apologies if I've got you wrong there. And Gord says, right, so what we're looking at is not that one, sorry, is this one. And what I will do, so we've got a plane, but I will just zoom in a little bit here because I want to show you so you can kind of get a slightly bigger sense of what's going on. Yep, I'll just fill the frame with that because I think this is what we're doing here is we're looking for the face. And Gord says the sunglasses and the landing gear as arms, but there are more. And that's what I saw. The first thing I saw is this looks like a pair of sunglasses. And he says kind of like little arms coming out here. I thought that was fun, as it is fun. But at the same time, you could also have a couple of eyes and a nose going up here. You can kind of start to sort of see, you know, also, as he says, well, the nose has eyes and a tiny smile. So if we look up here, you could take that as an eye and this as a smile as well, maybe something on the forehead. But as he also says, if you rotate it 180 degrees, so let's just do that. Now we've got more of almost like a kind of shark like that. I think with this idea of eyes here, and then this is a big nose, becomes much more prominent. Or you can even come in here, if we can take these two as eyes again, and this looks like maybe a kind of mask thing coming down, a little kind of nonplussed mouth kicking about there, maybe even kind of pointy eyebrows going up. So yes, lots to find in the plane. So what are comments here? April says a face with sunglasses. Viji says the face ultra. I think you must have hit the keyboard a bit funny on that one. Gunilla says, oh, sunglasses. Viji says, wearing shades. Marci says, I see it, Men in Black vibes. Sue says, got it, Gord, a face with sunglasses on a nose. Viji says, sunglasses on the nose is impeccable. And Sandy says, Gord, lol, I've looked at 1,000 planes and never noticed that before. Gord says, Men in Black crossed my mind too, first. Then there was this blue light. Right, okay, that's it. If you've seen Men in Black, that's a reference you might get. Viji says, a face in the belly. Yep, all round here. Okay, so yes, thank you, Gord. That one seems to have gone down well amongst everybody else too. So Sandra, now we're on to next. And Sandra said, I have to be honest, I didn't think I would have anything to enter because after 9 years of being on Photograd, I've never entered a Pareidolia competition. However, when I tuned in, you were talking about cars having faces. So I thought, I've taken a few photos of the fronts of cars. Let's go have a look and see what I've got. I had a look through my photos and I found the attached one taken back in August 2023. Quick investigation, she found that there was an annual Lotus car club rally in aid of the RNLI taking place. And so here we go. So this is a Lotus. She says, fortunately, there weren't too many people about, and I took lots of photos of all the different Lotus cars lined up. When I looked at them again, the attached photos stood out from all the others because the red thing at the front looks as though the car's sticking its tongue out. And the grille halfway up of the bonnet looks like spiky hair. It brought a smile to my face when I looked at it. Now, unfortunately, Sandra can't join us live because she's down in London with her nephew, but she will be watching on Catch Up. Lisa says, love it. April says, I love the teeth in the car. Now, interestingly, here, this is the number plate, and by the look of it, I think Sandra would have probably blanked out the numbers on the number plate. But that does, at the same time, kind of give it a big toothy smile. In fact, Viji says, such a toothy smile. Susan says, maybe smile, Sandra. And Gord says, nice hair. Gord says, and a lip ring. Well, it could be a lip ring or it could be the tongue sticking out. Again, different ways of interpreting. So yeah, nice kind of, and that bright yellow really catches all the attention. In fact, this would have looked perfect with all the cars that were going past as we started this podcast, distracting me out the window. Right, okay, thank you for sending that one in, Sandra. Okay, next up then, we're going to Marci. And Marci says, this week's topic is my fave. My obsession with photographing smoke is all about the faces that appear. And this is Marci's. And funny enough, when Marci sent me the picture kind of, I only got part of the picture filling the screen. And she said, oh, here's a face. And I was kind of trying to find a face in here. And I said, well, what kind of face have you got here? Anyway, she then said, no, it's definitely there. And I pulled out and I looked at the whole thing. And now here, see the forehead, the nose, the chin coming under, the eye. The smoke here almost reminds me of those those diagrams, those kind of cross-face diagrams where they used to have, like somebody smoking and the smoke's going in through down into the lungs. So yes, so here we've got a full kind of although generally speaking, you might be sort of looking for shapes. Is this here like some kind of prancing sloth or something, like a head here with legs coming down, back legs, big tail going up. You can find little images within that. Actually, the face, I think, the skull is fairly obvious. What have we got? Viji says, ooh, lovely. Gunilla says, yes, a face. April says, wow, great face. Susan says, looks like a famous image of Mozart, Marci. John says, good one, Marci. Viji says, modern art. The outline itself is very much the face. And thyroid neck, such an ethereal shot. Marci says, well, that's the bird on her shoulder. The bird on the shoulder. What, this bit here or something down here? Right. Okay, again, lots for interpretation. So, yes, thank you for sending that one in, Marci. Now, next up, we have Sandy. And so Sandy, who in here is Sandra Bliss, who's joined us. And Sandy, so welcome, Sandy. This is Sandy's first time for actually kind of joining in with the chat, I think, and the first submission for this. So Sandy is in Alberta in Canada, and says, please find attached my submission for the Pareidolia theme. Although this is my first submission, I have been watching your podcast for quite some time and have enjoyed and found your tutorials, feedback and themed challenges extremely helpful. And I might have found the group very supportive of each other too. That's good. I'm glad you feel that way, because I think it is a very supportive group here. A lovely group of people who turn up here each week. It's Viji saying we have a goddess in India. A parrot stays on her shoulder. All right, okay. So back to this then. She says, I've been somewhat lax at taking photos over the past year, trying to get back into it. So the title of my submission is Meow. Taken with my phone and edited with Snapseed to try and separate it from the background. And so here we have this kind of trike thing, I think. And so, yeah, interestingly, I see two distinct faces in this. The first that grabs my attention is, of course, this one with the two great big eyes and the mouth here. But then I also noticed, if we do this, we've kind of got two eyes, a nose and a mouth here as well. So, so take your choice. Or maybe it's, this one sitting on top of this one who's kind of slightly looking up and going, what are you doing up there? So... Lots of fun, but I think certainly in terms of Pareidolia, that this one, probably most people who can see a face in that one. Where do we say? Susan says, it's a great group, Sandy. Hope you stay with us. Viji says, I see two faces, one prominent and, again, seeing the one above, I think. April says, I see it right away. It also looks like a great horned owl. Marci says, very surprised and excited face. Lisa says, good one. Marci says, I see the owl, April. Viji says, a bike with two front wheels. Yes, I think it is a trike, and you get different trikes. Sometimes you get the two back wheels, sometimes you get the two wheels at the front. And Sandra Sandy says, funny, I just noticed that just now as well. Right, okay, so that then is our those are our entries. So thank you ever so much to everybody who sent in images for this challenge. So basically everybody who sent in the images gets 10 smug points, and then everybody who has been commenting live gets a bonus 5 smug points. So all of you here who sent in an image and have commented, you've got 15 smug points before we start. Now the fun here is going to be, so what's going to happen is I'm going to go through the photos and you get to do a viewer's choice. After that, I'll tell you what my choices are. So the viewer's choice will get a bonus 20 smug points. And then my top 3 will get 30, 20 and 10 as well. Now, I've already decided on my top 3. So you're going to choose first so that you're not influenced by me. And then after all this, I'll have to add it all up and decide, and then we'll figure out. I will let whoever's won, I will let them know within the next day or so. So what have we got? John says I like the owl though. Meg says absolutely amazing photos, and Sandy says fab images, everyone. Right, so what I'm going to do now then is I'm going to go back through the photos, and you can decide who you want to leave your vote for, essentially. So this, remember, is the Pareidolia challenge, the idea of seeing faces, animals, people in the images. Which ones impressed you the most that you would like? Now remember, you only vote for one person. If you list more than one person, I'm just going to take the person at the front of the list. So just make sure you only put the one person. And I should be saying, because I'm starting to suspect, actually, vote for the photo that you want, not necessarily the person. Occasionally, I've suspected some people have been putting up, there's a little bit of, sometimes you vote for the person that you've already got a connection with, or you like best, or there's other reasons than necessarily the photo. This is just a little bit of fun. It's just for the photo. Nobody needs to feel rejected if nobody voted for your photo. Right, so, okay, what are we going to go for? So let's flip back here. So I will run through them all, and then I will tell you to stick your name in. So if you think Susan's donkey, then you would say Susan. Viji, you're jumping the gun. We've not got there yet. Next up, we have Nadia's skull. Okay, so Viji's donkey, then Nadia's skull. So if you like the skull in the water, you would say Nadia. Then we've got Gunilla's dog, or piglet, as some people have seen, and person in the tree. Next up, we have Viji's Roadrunner, or rooster, or teddy bear, or elephant, depending on how you've decided to interpret Viji's one. Then we have Brian's, which could be the person in the diving suit, or faces, other faces in the in the reflection of the car wing and door. Then we have April's blue alien, surprise blue alien, in the hinge. Then we have Janet's face in the peeling paint. So that's Janet. And then Gord has got at the very least, the sunglasses on the plane, possibly with Men in Black overtones, with several other faces dotted about if you go in and start searching. Then we have Sandra with the Lotus and the sticking the tongue out, or the lip ring, with the bright yellow Lotus. That's Sandra. Then we have Marci's face in the smoke. That's Marci. And then we have Sandy's trike with the face, possibly two faces as well. So cast your vote. Write down the name of the person that you think should win the viewers' vote for the Pareidolia challenge. Now, while everybody scribbles that down, what do we do? So I will just kind of remind you now of what's coming. Well, next week is a feedback session. So basically, the feedback session, this is your chance to send in an image for direct feedback. We all have photos that we've taken that we feel is something in there, but it just hasn't worked in the way that we want it to. And we can't tell whether is it a conceptual thing? Is it something to do with the technicals of how we did the camera? Is it the way of editing? How can we improve the photo? Sometimes even we have a photo which we're really pleased with, and yet it always seems to bomb whenever we put it into a competition. We don't really know why. At this point, having a professional photographer with a different set of eyes, different set of skills and understanding of how photos are put together can be extraordinarily useful. When I set up these podcasts, feedback was actually what I thought would be the biggest part of these podcasts. So this is your opportunity. You get 1 or 2 of these a month. I can only fit 3, maximum 4 in any particular show. So first come, first serve basis. If you would like feedback on your photo, get it into me before next Friday, but ideally earlier in the week, because if I get more than 4 people, it will get bumped to future weeks. So that's what we're So yes, and at that point, yes. So send in the images to kimairspodcast at gmail.com. So that's feedback session next week. Okay, now I will take a look to see what we've got in terms of the... Viji says, so we've got Janet, Marci, Sandy, Janet gets my shot, but everybody, well done, everybody. Gord likes April's. Then we've got Janet, Susan, Viji, and Viji. Okay, I think Janet is the winner. So congratulations to Janet then for, let me just click back through for, no, not that, for this one. Excellent. Nice one, Janet. That one definitely seems to have grabbed everybody the most. So what about me? What are my choices? Well, again, I suppose it wasn't necessarily that easy to do, but and as always with these, you have, before anybody gets too upset why I've not chosen theirs, because let's face it, 11 out of 11 shots, 10 people didn't get my first choice. So there's more people who are going to be upset that I didn't choose theirs than there are people who are going to be happy that I did. The problems of being a judge. However, don't get too upset about this. Remember, this is just a bit of fun. We introduced the Smug Points a couple of years ago just to add an extra little interesting bit of fun to the podcast. And there is certainly a thing whereby sometimes, sometimes I think, if I just was in a different mood, if I hadn't had my coffee, if I was choosing a different time of day, I might have selected differently. But what I've decided to do is I too am going for Janet as well with this one. For me, in terms of a Pareidolia challenge, is I think this one did. It's instantly recognizable. You don't have to kind of think too hard about it. I think probably it will really appeal to more people. Will see it than won't see it. You don't have to struggle to see it. You don't have to interpret it. You don't have to have multiple interpretations of it. I mean, there might be subtle differences. Like somebody said that they thought this one would look more like a frog. Somebody else said they thought it looked more like Ghostbusters. But nobody's in any much doubt that it looks like a kind of a slightly comical face. So Janet is the one that's getting my bonus 30 smug points to Janet. So congratulations on that. My second choice, my runner-up on this one is Marci. I think having the face there, the smoke, this really did come together well. I think it's a good, strong photo. So bonus 20 smug points to Marci. And my third choice actually is going to be Viji, because whilst there were multiple interpretations on this, once you said the Meep Meep, I just you got me there. It was funny, and although I may be slightly struggling to see the full Roadrunner here, maybe I see a rooster more than that, but I can see the cloud of smoke coming out the back as well, and it's a beautiful sunset photo. So Viji gets a bonus 10 points. And I will just give commended, so a bonus 5 smug points to Gord, to April, and to Susan, I think. So you'll all get a bonus 5 smug points as well. So there we go. Congratulations to Janet for both my first choice and the viewers' first choice as well. So chances are, I think it's highly unlikely anybody else is going to have matched you, because everybody else has only got 5 or 10 smug points, depending on whether they've been commenting earlier in the podcast as well. So Janet, I'll be in touch, and if you want to start having a think about potential topics for June, and then we can have a little bit of an email back and forth until we get something settled on that. And so, but of course, thank you really to everybody who's taken part as well, because putting something in, you all get bonus 10 smug points for that, just for submitting something. And I like the idea that you've gone out and you've taken part. It's not, I don't think this has been the easiest of topics to go for, but then that's also what's made it kind of interesting as well. I don't think it would have occurred to me to do as a topic if Viji hadn't suggested it in the first place. And then, of course, thank you to everybody who's taken the time to comment as well, because it's the comments that make these podcasts fun. It's this interactive bit. It's not just me standing here giving a tutorial, droning away. It's you asking questions, making comments, chatting to each other. That really, I think, is part of what these podcasts are about. Probably highly infuriating if you're just watching them back, saying get to the point. I think these podcasts work best when you are doing a live interaction. But yes, anyway, little reminder then that if you have been enjoying it, do click the like. And if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe. And of course, don't forget, like I say, there is the Substack. Make sure you go and join the Substack to get the newsletter regularly in your post. And once I've figured out with Janet what the topic for June will be, I'll put out I'll remind everybody in that as well. Other comments we have, okay, a few people congratulating Janet, and Susan saying great image, it appeals to my minimalist brain, congratulations. Viji says particular challenge, each and every image are beauties, the smoke, the yellow car, toothy smile, the four-wheel bike, all and the airplane, all winners. April says Sandy seeing the two faces in the 30 seconds was a winner for me. Lots of congrats going. Marci saying seeing the Mozart. Roland says it was a tough one. It was, I think. Viji says I was afraid first to suggest a topic, but I'm happy to see the submissions today. Thank you. Susan says Mozart is a particular favourite of mine, Marci, so that was obvious to me. Right, okay. So thank you once again to everyone for taking part, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. But like I say, it's a feedback session. Get your images in, and we'll take it from there. Take care. Bye bye.